In this video, I'm going to share with you the most important things that you need to know if you want customers to buy your course. And I'm guessing you want people to buy your course. But we're also going to look at how to find areas that others, your competition, are totally ignoring and how you can dominate these areas. So let's get to it. If you focus, if you stay with me for just the next 10 minutes or so, you're going to have a much better idea of how to know exactly what your customers want and where or what is the best way to position your course. What I'm going to cover is one of the most important parts of the whole course creation process. The parts I'm covering are the parts that determine how successful your course is going to be, how much money that you're going to make. And I promise you, if you follow this advice, you'll find a very profitable market that you can pretty much own. And you'll know exactly what your customers want to buy. You'll know how to position your course so it sells. But if you don't, I can predict with pretty much 100% certainty how much you're going to make. And it's going to be a big fat zero. And that would suck. But before you dive in and learn what you need to do to make sure that your course is going to be a success, smash that like button like a boss. If you want to make sure that people are going to want to buy your course, there's only one thing that you need to do. You need to validate. You need to validate your audience. You need to find out what objections they have, what's going to stop them from becoming customers. You need to understand exactly what's going to make them want to buy your course. You need to validate your audience, and you also need to validate your market. I can say almost all of the time, there's a huge opportunity right under your nose, a market that's being totally ignored. Validating your course, if you do it right, you'll find markets that others are totally ignoring. But before we start talking about audience validation, let's talk about market validation. You see, every market has a series of levels. This is what you've got to understand. Let me give you a quick rundown on what I mean by levels. Let's say you created a course on, let's say, losing weight, and I'm totally making this up. Not that I need a course on weight loss, I'm in peak physical condition. So, say your course is on weight loss, and you just positioned it to everyone. You're now in the top level, and you're competing against everyone else who's offering any kind of weight loss solution. Good luck making that work. You're going to need really deep pockets to pull that one off. But if you move down a level, if you did a course on, say, losing weight by swimming, you've now moved down to a sub-level. If you defined your course, say, even further and did a course on, let's say, weight loss by swimming for, say, the over 50s, you've now moved into more niche territory. When you get into a niche, you can quickly dominate it. This is where the easy money is. I mean, by definition of the term, a niche is a market that's ignored by the masses, and the audience in a niche is really receptive to a product they feel is aimed directly towards them. While all the masses are fighting hard and shouting at the crowded market, which is the top level, the smart course creators are quietly dominating the more profitable markets. This is the smart way to operate. Let me give you an example of how just a little shift can make a big difference. A while back, I was approached at Infinite Skills, which, by the way, was the name of my company before I sold it. I was approached by this author who wanted to create a Photoshop course with us. I mean, Photoshop is a really popular program. I'm sure you know this. It's got a big audience. But as big as the audience is, every man and his dog has a training course on Photoshop. Marketing a course to such a generic audience is hard and it's expensive. So I changed it. Just a little, but boy, what a difference it made. Instead of a Photoshop course for the larger market, we did a Photoshop for Architects course. It's pretty much the same content, same skills, same techniques and all that. We just made a few adjustments. We changed the title and we repositioned the product to exploit a niche. We ended up doing really well from that. It was a market no one was paying attention to. At the time, we pretty much had 100% of that market. Let me give you another example that highlights a slightly different consideration. Let's look at how repositioning can make you more money. A lot more money. A client of mine wanted to build a course on memory techniques for students. I mean, good choice, you'd think. Students have to remember a lot of stuff. But as I pointed out to him, students don't normally want to spend the type of money he should be charging for how good his course was. So I convinced him to switch it slightly and focus on teaching his techniques to professionals doing corporate speaking. Those that want to give compelling presentations and who don't want to read from a script. A far more lucrative market with people happy to pay for the results his course delivers. He did, and he totally crushed it, and that was just by slightly repositioning his offer. So that's another consideration. Is your market willing to pay? Is it able to pay? There may be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? After this video, I'd like you to think a little bit about your topic and then do a little bit of research. Are you missing a niche that's right under your nose? Could you reposition your topic to speak to an audience that would likely pay more or be more receptive to your course? Is there an audience that's being ignored? These are questions that you've got to ask yourself, and it's worth having an open mind and doing a little research before you lock your idea in. When you research, it's a bit of a balancing act. You don't want to go too niche, you're not trying to find a market with zero competitors. If I find no competitors, say very little in the way of free content on YouTube, not much written about it, I proceed with caution. Alarm bells start ringing. This often means there's no market at all. So, when I say research, what exactly do I look for? Well, there's a few things that you can and should consider when you're defining your topic. In fact, the research you do here is going to come in very useful when working on other areas of your course. If you spend the time getting yourself all set up, the research that you do here will help with marketing. It will help with the creation of your lessons. It will give you an insight into what your customers really want to know. You'll become more familiar with the terms they use. All important information you're going to find really useful later. Normally, I'll start with YouTube, and I'm looking for videos that are very closely related to my topic. I'm looking at how old the content is, how popular the video is, and then I scroll the comments. I'm looking for questions. Any questions that look interesting, I note everything down in either a Google Doc or Evernote. Anything that makes it easy for you to organise your research. I set up a folder on my desktop and I put all my research in. I'm collecting questions, I'm collecting comments, ideas as they pop into my head. If something grabs my attention, I note it down. Now, just as a side note on the subject of questions, as a matter of good business, you should be on a constant quest to collect questions, even when you're not in research mode. You see, questions, they're the insight into what your audience wants. Your audience's questions give you the answers on what to create, so collect them. And then when you're reading the questions in the comments, make sure that you note the language and terms that are being used by your audience. This will help you make sure your course resonates with your audience. Anyway, once I'm happy that I've extracted enough information from YouTube, I'll then turn my attention to social, particularly Facebook. And I'm looking for groups on closely related topics. Again, it's the questions I'm looking for. If I can, I'll actually join the groups and I'll just outright ask. Now, if you do this, don't be spammy about it. Don't go self-promoting your up-and-coming course. Let's say you're looking at creating a course on, say, homeschooling, and after your initial research, it indicates that this market is, let's say it's a little crowded, so you've decided a more niche course on homeschooling may be a better option. Say you thought that homeschooling children with ADHD was a more fitting topic, and I'm borrowing this example from one of my private clients here. You could drop into a few homeschooling groups and ask questions about homeschooling children with ADHD, or maybe some other special needs. You'll soon find out just how receptive the possible market is. Now, you could be a little more direct if you like. You could ask. You could post a question, something like, what do you think is the biggest challenge of homeschooling children with ADHD? What I've just described is the ask method. Now, don't be fooled here by its simplicity. It works. It's simple and it's very effective. Find an audience, ask them what they want, give it to them. Once I've done my YouTube and my social searches, I'll then turn my attention to Amazon. I want to see what books are written on the subject and I want to read the reviews. Now, I'm not interested in the 1 or the 5-star reviews. What I want are the 3 and the 4 stars. I want the comments that say, good book, but didn't cover this. You should be looking for comments that will give you an insight to the market and what's being ignored. Once you've done this, then it's time to start to review your competitors and general posts on the web. anything to validate your idea and give you information for what direction you should be moving it. If you can find blogs or articles written, you could reach out to the author and then open up a dialogue. But all the time through the whole process, you should be making notes, taking screenshots and saving all the interesting questions and comments. All this research is going to pay dividends on what you should be creating. And then later when you're marketing your course, you'll find this research invaluable for creating ads and sales copy that speak directly to what the customers want. But a quick word of warning here. When you're researching, you can go on forever. Just make sure you don't go down a rabbit hole here. When you're starting out with your research, it's a challenge. I won't pretend it's not. But once you've got your own customers, they'll tell you what you want and you can run surveys. Ask for feedback. All you're trying to do here is get a good starting point to gain traction. In fact, if you've already got clients, you could send them a quick questionnaire. But a quick tip if you do, don't give them multiple options or checkboxes. What you want is open-ended questions, text boxes where they've got to write in the answers. And then a follow-up call after you've received the questionnaire back is something else you could do to help you dig a little deeper. And you don't need to go all fancy either. You can use Google Forms, which is free. Or if you like, there are other great resources like SurveyMonkey. And then when you've collected all this information, it's going to help you lock in your topic. And it's also going to give you some pretty solid ideas of what content to cover inside your course. Now, there's actually a bit more to validation than this, but this will give you a good place to start. Now, if you like this lesson, you may want to know that I also run a Facebook group just for course creators, so why not join and get tips, tricks and techniques daily? I'll put a link below. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, hit the like button like a boss. And you know, I'd really like to have your comments and your questions, so you know what to do. Let me know down below. And don't forget to subscribe. So until next time, bye for now.